Hey, what's up everyone? This is Joe. I'm so happy to be bringing you this video finally of our new brake rotors for the Mitsubishi Pajero Evolution, for all you wonderful folks out there that own one of these great cars. Here are those brake rotors you've been jonesing for all this time. They will be sold only as a complete set, 2 fronts, 2 rears, and if you wanted to, you can also option the brake pads to go with them. This is how they will look. The packaging is going to be pretty similar to this. This isn't the completely final packaging, but it'll be pretty similar to this. There are the rear rotors. They're going to be completely bare steel, just like this, but the only thing that's missing is they will be laser etched with the part numbers. So that is going to be on there as well, on the hats. There are the fronts sitting next to my takeoff. The old rotor coming off my car. So the packaging is really cool. FSC have done an incredible job with the packaging. It looks fantastic. Here are the brake pads that you can option. For the fronts, we have the Brembo P55W 29N. And for the rear, we have the Pajero 3550 35331. Like I said, you can either buy these yourself or you can option them as part of the package deal. And here is the awesome SAM starting on the front brakes. Firstly, we're undoing the caliper pins. And straight after the caliper pins, we're going to get to the, we're going to remove the calipers, as he's doing, putting them safely aside so we don't cause any damage to the brake lines. Here Sam is just explaining that the caliper pins and the bracket bolts are actually the same size, 17mm. Now I apologize for the fact that I am speaking all the way through this, because when I was recording this, unfortunately the sound didn't come out too well. Oh, here is Sam just clarifying that of the caliper pins, the top one is longer than the bottom one, so make sure you don't forget that when you put them back in. The top one is the longer one. You can see there it's probably about 3/4 of an inch longer than the bottom one. And those are the bracket bolts. Old pads, old rotor comes off. Make sure to give the mating surfaces a good clean up in whichever way you want, whether you use a wire brush or a drill tool or brake cleaner, but make sure you give those a real good clean up so that the new rotors can mate with the surface nice and evenly. Here we can see Sam doing a beautifully artistic job with the anti-seize. As I was saying earlier, I'm going to have to narrate all the way through this and put some really crappy YouTube music over this, simply because while we were recording this, the sound didn't come out too good, and FSC were playing some really fantastic 80s and 90s pop music over the PA system, which was fun at the time, but if I don't edit it out, this YouTube video will never get seen because it'll be flagged and taken down. So you'll have to put up with my dulcet British tones and some hopefully not too crappy YouTube music. The new rotor goes on, as you can see, fits absolutely perfectly. Give it a good clean with some brake cleaner just to make sure there's no grease or oil on there from shipping. Now we're putting the caliper bracket back on, and what Sam is doing there is putting a little bit of thread lock on the end of the caliper bolts. Now, if I was, taking my time and doing this myself, I probably would have given those caliper brackets a really good cleanup with a brush. You can do that if you want to. I'm completely OCD, but obviously we were trying to get through this as quickly as possible. Now, while Sam is bolting up the caliper brackets and the calipers, I'll tell you what we found out regarding the torque specs. So we found the actual torque specs for the caliper bracket bolts, and those torque specs are 83 pound-foot or 112 newton meters, and they're the actual torque specs that we found. Thank you, Laszlo, for sending that information. Now, regarding the caliper pins, we had a bit of a problem regarding that, trying to find that specific torque spec. Now, the Montero Gen 2, which my friend Michael Teo told me, the torque specs for those caliper pins were 54 pound-foot, which seemed awfully high, since normally the torque spec for caliper pins is much lower, 28 to 38-ish. So what we basically did was we had a discussion about it, and Sam decided to split the difference, and we went with 45. So he took the caliper pins to 45 pound-foot, which is 61 newton meters, and the caliper bracket bolts to 83 pound-foot, which is 112 newton meters. Now what Sam is doing right now, we've put in the new Brembo pads, and he has used a caliper spreader just to open up the pistons so we can put the calipers back on over the new pads. Give those pins a bit of a clean, put some anti-seize on those pins, and he'll put those pins back in to hold the calipers in place. And like I said, they will be tightened to 45 pound-foot. now we are on to replacing the rears. Now it's pretty much exactly the same situation with a couple of interesting differences. Firstly, when you're removing the caliper pins, the top one is kind of blocked by the brake line, as you can see here. So Sam recommends using an open-ended wrench. Undo it as much as possible without damaging the brake line. And then what you do is you fully undo the bottom one, and you should be able to slide the caliper out without too many problems. Once again, I remind you that these are 17mm bolts. As you can see here, once the lower pin is removed, the caliper lifts up and slides out quite easily. Another small difference between the front and rears are that on the rears there is an extra small 10mm bolt at the top and bottom, and what that bolt does is actually hold the dust shield in place attached to the caliper bracket. So you have to remove those two small bolts as well as the caliper bracket bolts and the caliper pins. So just those two extra 10mm bolts which you see there on both sides, which hold the dust shield in place onto the caliper bracket. Another situation we came across were that the rear rotors were stuck fast to the hub. They would not come off. By the way, make sure that you do not have the e-brake on, because obviously if you have the e-brake on, those rear rotors are not going to come off because they're going to be held on tight by the brake pads. So make sure that that is turned off or you know, down, not on. And then what Sam is doing here is using two small bolts through the little pinholes. They are 8mm by 1.25 thread pattern, and he's just winding them through and using them to push the rotor away from, there it is, 8mm times 1.25 is the thread pattern for the bolt, and he's using those to push through the rotor in order to push the rotor off the hub. And as you can see, once you've done that, a couple more turns, and the hub comes right off. Once again, really good clean of the mating surfaces on the hub. Make sure you give the e-brake components inside the drum a really good clean with some brake cleaner. Look at that, all shiny and new. Another opportunity to make some art and cover the mating surface with some anti-seize. Oh, make sure you do not forget to take the rubber plug and switch it over to the new rotor. That rubber plug covers the small hole that you use to adjust the e-brake. Slide the new rotor on, fits like a glove. As you can see, looks beautiful. The fitment on these rotors is immaculate, absolutely perfect. FSC and the manufacturing company did an incredible job with the fitment of these. And then rinse and repeat, just like with the front. We button everything up. We put the caliper bracket back on, tighten the caliper bolts to 83 pound-foot, put the new pads in, use a spreader to spread the calipers, put the calipers back on, new pins, make sure to grease the pins, put the pins back in, 45 pound-foot. Don't forget those 10mm bolts that hold the dust shield in place. And there you have it, job done. Look how beautiful those front and rear rotors look. Brand new rotors for our Mitsubishi Pajero Evolutions. Let's keep these things going as long as we can. The last thing I want to say is just thank you to everyone. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your patience. Thank you to everyone that helped make these things happen. All of my friends at FSC, LA, and all of my other friends in the Mitsubishi Pajero Evolution community, especially Laszlo, Teo, who helped me make sure that we got all the specs correct for this thing, so it was perfect for everyone. Thank you, everyone.